Guys, the unthinkable has happened. The most based, red-pilled game of all time, a game known for having no strong female characters, no LGBT representation, no representation or advocating for, like, minority groups or against decolonization, no progressive values in it at all. A famously based and red-pilled game. Final Fantasy XIV. No women, no gay people, no minorities play this game. Very famously, of course. Grumps has come along, and he has claimed that this game is going woke. Obviously, that was a bit of sarcasm there. For those that aren't aware, FF14 has a reputation not just for being the world's biggest MMO, and by a lot, but for also being extremely woke. Like, it is one of the most shining examples of go woke, go broke not being true, because it is a game that screams its wokeness into your face constantly, and it's what most of the fans of the game there love, you know? I mean, we're talking about a game here with at least a 50% female player base. Like, women actually play this MMO, you know what I mean? But that aside, Grumps has decided that it would be smart for him to target Final Fantasy XIV as the next sort of thing to grift off of. Now, I want to point something out to you guys. There is a strategy that the right has used for years now to try and hate click or gain hate clicks off of a popular thing, right? And this was just throwing eggs at the wall and seeing what sticks, right? Like, just attacking every new thing as being woke if it has anything even vaguely progressive in it, or anything that offends them, any representation, anything like that, and then hoping it'll fail so that they can kind of grift off of the anger over the failing product, right? But nowadays, it seems like they've started to refine their method. And I like to call it, I've got a word for it. It's called the sinking ship method, where these people try to look for a sinking ship of a popular thing, and they themselves try to make themselves the life raft that the fans of that sinking ship board and ride off on, right? Like, in this case, he is trying to look for a sinking ship in Final Fantasy XIV, a very popular game that he thinks might be falling off right now, and has a fan base of people who might flock to him if he's calling out the things people are upset about. And why does he think that FF14 is a sinking ship? Well, they've just introduced a new expansion, Tril. And Tril is the first expansion after the end of a big saga, a 10-year-long storyline that goes from A Realm Reborn to Endwalker. And now we're starting a new saga with a much more boots-on-the-ground, lower stakes, like Chapter 1 kind of vibe in Tril. The story is very simple. We'll get to it in a moment, and you'll get why, like, Grumps is kind of full of shit here. But, that aside, it's a lot more chill. And the story is different than anything we've really seen before. We're in a new place. It's a whole new story, right? An MMO falling off because they added an expansion? Well, it's not falling off, but I'll get to it in a second. Now, naturally, when a new expansion comes out for this game, something you have to understand is that this game has a very loyal fan base of people that follow its story. Like, very, very, very much so. The characters have very dedicated fan bases. The story has a very dedicated fan base. And anytime something happens they don't like, or a decision is made that they don't like, or they don't understand the end game to a bit of setup, they complain. Because to them, at this point especially, anything seen as a potential fuck-up or mistake is like a single blemish on what is a perfect diamond, a perfect gemstone that is FF14's story. And it is a very good story. And in this new expansion, well, let's read the Grumps tweet, and I'll take it apart bit by bit. Let's see what Grumps has to say. Final Fantasy XIV gone woke? Steam reviews dropped to mixed. Video clip added. Players are upset with the latest MMO expansion, which shifts the story away from the player to focus on WLamat. an NPC. He never calls her a character, by the way. It's always an NPC, which they find insufferable, who is voiced by a trans voice actress. The story and voice acting is considered so bad that people want to skip every cutscene involving her. Listen for yourself in the attached clip. Personally, I don't care if the voice actress is trans. By the way, his fans got really mad at him for saying he doesn't care if the voice actress is trans. He tried to do the whole "I'm not a bigot" thing, and then his fans were like, "What do you mean you don't care the voice actress is trans? What do you mean, Grums?" They got really fucking pissed about that. But it does sound pretty wooden and stilted and forced here. It is also curious that English/USA is the only place they cast a trans voice actress. Or VO. He doesn't say voice actress, obviously. Blame is falling everywhere from bad writing, bad and woke localization, but especially the voice acting. Is this another move by the Square Enix ethics department which mandated Tifa's breast reduction? Mind you, there was no Tifa breast reduction censorship. He likes to make up things like that for getting the Gooners mad. But here's the screenshots he attaches. Here's WLamat, she's a Catwoman. And here are the different voice actresses in the 4 languages. You've got Nell Peterzik, Clementine Blyo, Ayaka Shimo Yamada, and Sina Breyer. And so he's mad that one of the voice actresses, the one for the English dub of WLamat, is trans, basically. And they're also mad about this localization lead. Mind you, this is the localization lead that has been the localization lead since Shadowbringers. I could go into like a deep explanation of how people have felt about this game since Shadowbringers, but if you've heard about this game, you've probably heard, "Oh my god, Shadowbringers is so good. Oh my god, it's so fucking good," is probably most of what you've heard if you've ever heard the word Shadowbringers before. Shadowbringers and Endwalker are the most beloved expansions. They are the most award-winning expansions. This is the person who does the localization, but they have pink hair, and so I guess they're behind the, like, ruin of the game. I don't know. Here's a comment from 2 days ago that says, "I think if you skip it, you do miss on some of WLamat's development, and the expansion hinges on whether or not you like her, since she is the main character of this story. Personally, I got sick of her very quickly. I had to change the VA to Japanese because the VA they chose is atrocious. The delivery is really flat and uninspired. I even had to skip the second half of the story because my enjoyment was cut short with how front and center she was." I need to be very clear with you here, guys. Before I play the clip. These are not Final Fantasy XIV players. Like, I'm a relatively new player to FF14. Like, I just finished Endwalker, like, a couple weeks ago. But I've been in the space for long enough to know that the idea of skipping a cutscene in the MSQ of FF14 because you don't like a character, that's not normal. Like, that's not something anybody does. So let's see the voice acting that's apparently so bad that this person could not watch it. Let's see how bad this WLamat character's voice acting really is.
Hardly. I know little about your land and nothing about your parentage. But in my eagerness, I've gotten ahead of myself. I can't expect you to agree on the spot when we've only just met. If you have any questions, I'll do my best to answer them. Just know, though, that if it's adventure you seek, you could do far worse than come with me. Hardly.
What are they talking about? Exactly. The only thing that I've seen anybody in the community mention about the voice acting is that it was jarring for them to encounter American voice acting. Because, the game mostly hinges around, like, Europe and some Asian-inspired locations. So characters tend to either have, like a Japanese accent or a British accent or, like, a Welsh accent or a Scottish accent, something along those lines. And so this is the first time we've encountered American accents. WLamat comes from, like, the South America region, that we're going to be visiting in the expansion. And so some people were like, oh, it's jarring to encounter American accents in the game. But besides that, no one in the community is complaining about this. The expansion, within hours, got mixed ratings on Steam. But something you guys, if you're not, like, tapped into FF14, this is sort of, I'm giving you guys the lowdown so you can understand how much of a grifter Grums is in this context. For those who don't know, when an expansion drops for FF14, on day one, in this case it's 7. Or is it 6 or 7.0? I think it's 7.0 is the expansion we're on, the version we're on. When that version drops on day one, you've got no less than 50 hours of cutscenes to watch, not counting any gameplay, before you have finished the first patch's story. And that's, once you finish the first patch's story, you're lucky if you're like halfway through an expansion. That's usually like the first third of the expansion's story. Maybe a little more. Maybe like the first 60% of the story. And then the rest of it is in patch content. So like the idea that within the first 24 hours, the people who were leaving these negative reviews were people who had even come anywhere close to finishing the MSQ of Dawn Trail. Because for one, they literally couldn't have finished the MSQ. It's not fully released yet. And two, the expansion hadn't even been out for as long as the cutscenes are combined, not counting gameplay. You immediately know that this is bullshit. Mind you, Grums released this before the people reviewing could have finished the expansion. The expansion is so new, 90% of players don't even know what happens after the halfway point of patch 1. So this isn't just Grums, like, grifting and lying as he normally does. Mind you, FF14 is very much still the biggest MMO in the world. Dawn Trail is its biggest expansion. But he's also lying because he doesn't understand FF14. Like he doesn't understand the game he's trying to grift off of, and the premise that he's arguing is that an expansion is bad that hasn't even fully released yet. Like, the content release type that this game does is different from, like, WoW, for example, which is where his grift originally started, where, like, day one of an expansion, you kind of know whether it's going to be good or not with WoW, where with FF14, like, you'll do 10 quests that are, like, kind of slow and boring in the MSQ, and then all of a sudden something crazy happens, and you're like, oh, shit! And you lock the fuck in, right? It's more like watching a TV show than playing a game, where it's like, oh, that was kind of a episode of the show. I hope the show gets better. And then you watch the next episode and you're like, oh, fuck, it does. That happens sometimes in FF14's story, but Dawn Trail's been pretty solid so far. So, as you can imagine, the majority of the upsettedness comes from the fact that the voice actress for WLamat is trans. Now, I also feel I should mention that the scene that he includes here is also another good example of how Grums doesn't understand the game he's trying to grift off of. This isn't from Dawn Trail. You guys realize that, right? Like, this clip isn't from the expansion that he's complaining about. This clip is from the end of Endwalker, the post-patch, the setup for Dawn Trail. This is when we first meet WLamat, like the second we meet her. And when we meet her, she's basically pretending to be tough. Like, WLamat is, well, let me show you the most iconic image of her from the expansion real fast. I can pull up the image very quickly because it's so iconic. When you first meet her, she's like that. She kind of makes herself seem real tough, real strong, real independent, but in reality, she's a lot more like this. She spends a lot of the expansion like this. You, as the player, are basically Saitama by this point. Like, by the end of Endwalker, you have traveled to the edge of the universe and destroyed the concept of despair and nihilism. Now you're just an unfathomably powerful fucking dude, and now you're just going on adventures. There are fights in this expansion that your character just chooses not to participate in because it would be over instantly, because you're just so strong. The story of this expansion is about her and her rise to power in a sort of contest for succession, and you're helping her. and guiding her to being like a good leader. So it's more so that she is the main character, and the story is experienced through you, and through your character, you influence her. It's very interesting and very unique. Trans furry fetish material. Oh yeah, the furries are definitely like foaming at the mouth for WLamat for sure. But she's a cool character. As a matter of fact, here's the trailer for Dawn Tril, which is the expansion in question. You get a little bit more of WLamat's voice acting here as well, and it'll just give you an idea of what the expansion is like and how, like, just out of touch and not tapped in Grums is. And then after this bit, I have another thing to show you that really, really nails the, like, I think knocks home the point that Grums is barking up the wrong tree with the FF14 fanbase. Here's the trailer for Dawn Tril. It explains the story that Grums is misunderstanding.
The fate of the world doesn't rest on our shoulders. We might even get a chance to enjoy ourselves.
Do not be so quick to relax.
Just wait, Papa. When this contest is said and done, it'll be your daughter who sits the throne. Me, WLamat.
And so
WLamat,
does our
true.
ship cast off from the docks. In retrospect, of course, that battle against the storm would prove a fitting prelude to the coming contest for the throne.
New world. Well, her first name is Wook. W-K. W-U-K. But it does sound like Woke.
You four will compete in the right of succession. The outcome of which will decide who takes my place as Dawn Serpent.
We are blessed siblings, the elevated chosen.
Our nation can change for the better.
I am bound to no one.
WLamat, protector of peace and soon-to-be Dawn servant.
A waste of time. I can always take what I need later.
Our nation is a fortress, and its people the bricks with which it is built.
It is through embracing innovation that we will usher Tuli Yolal onto a more prosperous future.
This bit gets a little spoilery what it's about to show, so I'm going to stop the trailer here for people that don't want to have the City of Gold spoiled for them, because they just kind of, like, fucking show it in this trailer for some reason. I don't like that they did that. So I'll preserve your not being spoiled on what the City of Gold looks like. Anyway, though, it's inspired by El Dorado, but it's something else. Like, the City of Gold's a thing that's been talked about a fair amount in the MSQ of FF14 for a while. I know Emmett Selk mentions it in Endwalker, and now it's finally, like, kind of a thing that we've got to look for and find for reasons. Anyway, I want to give you guys a good idea of why this game is just such a hilarious, false, and definitely failed grift attempt for any conservative people that try to monetize off of hate clicks for this game. For one, it's the biggest MMO in the world by a lot and continues to grow. But on top of that, it's possibly the most progressive and accepting and left-leaning woke SJW, whatever list of words you want to use to describe it, community of gamers in the world. To give you an idea, here is one of the most upvoted posts on the entire FF14 subreddit, and it goes as following. Yoshi P says trans rights from Kotaku interview. For those that don't know, Yoshi P is the guy, the head guy of FF14. He is the face of FF14, Yoshi P. And this is a story he told in a Kotaku interview 5 years ago. To touch on the second part of your question about gender restrictions, first and foremost, I think there should be freedom in your values when it comes to the different genders. We don't want to restrict attire and clothing that you wear based on your character's gender or sex. Basically, this was him explaining why they're adding cross-dressing. Well, why they added cross-dressing. This was 5 years ago. So when this interview happened, these were features that were coming. Now they're like, have been in the game for like 5 years now. So this was when he was explaining why they added cross-dressing and broke the gender locking for gear. Let me give an example. I was heading to the office on a Saturday, and I saw a situation that made me very sad. This is him, like, on his way to the office to work on FF14. I was trying to go into the office, and I was waiting at a red light. I saw a high schooler coming from the other side of the road in their school uniform. It seemed that she was biologically male at birth, but that she was wearing a sailor fuku, which is traditionally female attire. In Japanese high schools, there are more and more schools accommodating for freedom of not being restricted to a specific gender for your uniform. That person probably wanted to present the gender they identified with in their heart. On the other side of the road was a mother and a daughter. The daughter was perhaps 5 years old. As soon as the mother saw the high schooler, she shielded her daughter as if she didn't want her daughter to see. The high schooler must have been very hurt. Situations like these still happen, and there's areas where there's not much understanding. That being said, we want to address this, and I think it will be gradual. For instance, for the ceremony of eternal bonding, we've already started to make adjustments. This is the marriage system in the game. Like, you can marry your homies in FF14. There's a marriage system in the game where you can marry other players and you get wedding rings that let you teleport to each other. And they added gay marriage. So you can, like, be a female character and get married to another female character, or be a male character and get married to another gay, male character and have, like, your gay wedding. And then if he goes on to say, when we officially release this, you won't have gender restrictions. If you both want to wear a dress to the wedding, that's perfectly fine. And if you want to both wear a tuxedo at the wedding, that would also be fine. That's not available in game yet, but now it is. But we have done the preparations for it. Mind you, all those features are now in the game. So yeah, basically, Yoshi P, the guy who is the head of the game, is himself very progressive and has been open about it. The community has been very supportive of this fact. Some of the largest FF14 content creators are trans. A few of the largest FF14 content creators are trans. You stand in any capital city and you will eventually see an advertisement for a pride party in the housing district of any given capital city on any given server on any given day at any given time. It's such an overwhelmingly progressive game. But it's not like a game that's like super progressive, but with a conservative audience that doesn't get it. It's a game that's really progressive and is so in your face about it that conservatives can't even stomach it. This is a game entirely populated by progressive-ass people. Grums is barking up the most... It is hilarious how wrong of a tree Grums is barking up right now. Grums didn't know Disney park employees are all called cast members, or he's just lying. This is the viral post slamming me that people are using as a gotcha about my Disney tweet. He's a journalist at IGN, and his experience at Disney, he was a cast member for a year. He was Goofy or Mickey running around in a fursuit pretending to be a ride expert. This is the authority that people are citing. Any employee that works at a Disney park is considered a cast member, not exclusively character performers. This includes ride operators, which is the job user by Will Borger had. Huh. Yeah, no, Grums is, like, legitimately just, a lying idiot. He's astonishingly stupid. People included this, and to be fair, like, the overall ratings for the game are obviously really high, but Dawn Tril's rating, at least... like a couple days ago, was mixed. So there's a chance that maybe the expansion, like, somehow we got some time travelers that know how the expansion goes in the last, 60% of it, but maybe the expansion is bad. And if it is really bad, if the expansion does end up being bad, and I say if because I genuinely don't know, I'm still too early in the story to know yet, I'd say it's pretty solid so far. But who knows? Maybe it just, gets really boring and nothing happens. If that happens, what Grums will try to do And what the Chuds will try to do is that method I described earlier, which is the sinking ship method. They will recognize if the game is a sinking ship that's like losing support, and they will desperately try to scoop up those leaving fans of the game and bring their anger over the loss of something they enjoyed or the worsening of something they enjoyed and motivate it into right-wing political fervor. You know, they're doing it with Warhammer right now, for example. Like, guys, from what I can tell, I know some pretty progressive Warhammer fans. Warhammer is probably a sinking ship. At the very least, Games Workshop is. Games Workshop is an awful company. Like, a genuinely awful, awful company. And people are very quickly jumping off of the Games Workshop train because of how shitty of a company they are. And the right recognizes this. They recognize that Games Workshop is a sinking ship, and so they're hyper-focusing on criticizing any progressive messaging Games Workshop does and trying to associate the fall of what they recognize the sinking ship that is Games Workshop with wokeness. It's not like FF14 never had a mediocre story. Ask about Stormblood. Listen, Stormblood is not bad. I'm gonna be honest. Like, Stormblood's story is... Stormblood might have one of the best stories. Nah, I wouldn't say one of the best, because Shadowbringers and Endwalker are just so fucking good. Stormblood does not have a bad story. I think it's the fact that Stormblood is a story that is less high stakes than the two stories it's, like, sandwiched between. And everybody talks about how they don't like Stormblood, and so you're just like, you kind of expect not to like it, you know? Stormblood's good. Stormblood's where we meet Xenos. It's one of the best expansions. I'd say Stormblood's up there. I'd say it goes above Heavensward for me, honestly. Like, Heavensward was great, but Stormblood had Xenos. Yeah, exactly. Stormblood is an 8 between two 9s, right? Like, how do you deal with that when you, like, exactly. But it has Xenos too. It's where Xenos was introduced. You know, like, you can't shit on the expansion that introduced Xenos Ye Galvis. Anyway, with all that said, thank you so much for watching this little rant about how stupid Grums is for trying to grift off of FF14 of all games, a game with a community that will never in a million years give Grums the time of day. Even funnier, a game with a community that is like 50% women that would immediately get the ick upon looking at Grums. Like, wild to me that Grums thinks this is a tree he can climb up. You know, I get it that it's the biggest MMO in the world, but you know, it's not full of conservatives just waiting to have the wokeness in the game pointed out for them. It's a very, very woke fan base. I'm excited to see this implode on these people, because, like, attacking the world's biggest MMO for one of the things that its fan base loves is probably not a very good strategy for them. Anyway, as the sunlight fucking blasts me, consider dropping a like. I really do appreciate every single one, no matter when, where, or what you're watching. It really helps a lot. And also, don't forget to subscribe and comment down below. It really goes a long way, and it means a lot to me, so thank you. Follow my social medias, linked down below, to see more from me on other platforms. And of course, don't forget to follow or to join my fan Discord, also linked in the description. It is the main hub of my fan base. It is completely free to join, and we also host game events there all the time. Or not game events, community events there all the time, including game events, call-in streams, and watch parties. We're actually going to be doing a watch party right after stream today. When I wrap up, we're going to be watching more Avatar: The Last Airbender. We're going to be in Season 2. I'm watching it blind, so hopefully you'll be there to join us for it. That said, if you want to support me directly, you can do so by donating, subscribing, or gifting a sub on my website, xanderhall.com/live, or supporting me through YouTube, Twitch, Streamlabs, Stream Elements, Patreon, or buying merch to the Streamlabs link down below. But regardless, thank you for watching, and have a good one.